966.
One of the things we do talk about most on the 966, the program formerly known as the King Abdullah Scholarship Program, or CASP, even though CASP never really took off as an acronym for the program. It has a new refreshed structure and mandate, which I'll talk about in a second. But first, the reason why we talk about it so much is that so many of our friends and colleagues have either taken part in it or benefited from it in some way. Wow, I can't talk today. It's really an incredible story. And so I was looking at the changes in the refreshed structure and mandate to this program, and I said, well, let's get to the history of this a little bit. How did it start? And King Abdullah wasn't the first Saudi king to, under his patronage, enable Saudi students to be educated abroad. SACM was founded in 1951 to oversee the cultural and educational needs of the Saudi Arabian students. 1951. Since then, the kingdom has paid for their youth to be educated abroad, but it was the late King Abdullah of Saudi Arabia, Richard, as we know well, who completely transformed and invigorated this program. Before King Abdullah took over or reinvigorated it, in 2005, there were less than 5,000 Saudis studying in the United States. Of course, 9/11 had a little bit of an impact on that. But King Abdullah really saw the long-term generational value in drastically increasing the program. We're talking about eventually reaching over 100,000 Saudi students in the USA each year, and as much as double that globally. By 2019, it had decreased a little bit. There were 60,000 Saudi Arabians studying in the US, 40,000 on scholarship. When we talk about scholarship, we're talking about full tuition, health insurance, and a monthly stipend. At the same time, Saudi Arabia started scaling it back, and that's sort of what they've done. Just in the last 2 weeks, and Richard, you mentioned this, we had two incredible guests on the program discussing sort of their career trajectory and what they're doing. Both were actually with the Ministry of Health, but one thing that we're just infinitely interested is their experiences studying in the United States, coming here knowing very little English, spending 15 years here, becoming part of the culture here, making friends, and then bringing those values back, and obviously bringing their values here. The program's effects are still really being felt, as you and I both know. So the program is now being turbocharged again, but in a different way. If you look at it, it's adapting to a changing Saudi Arabia, one that already has many Saudis who have studied abroad and returned home, literally hundreds of thousands of Saudis. The program sort of reflects the fact that Saudi Arabia is teaching English earlier and earlier to its students locally. This was specifically mentioned for the new updated program as something that Saudis wanted to not send students abroad for English anymore. The program sort of focuses on paying for Saudis to get educated in areas that provide more specific value and needs to Saudi society specifically. So here's what we know. This is from ICEF.com, a company that connects the international education industry with each other. The refresh program will send 70,000 Saudi students abroad to top-ranked universities and training institutes by 2030. That's globally. They'll go not to just any schools, but to 200 foreign-approved institutions. So not, as we discussed, not the middle of Indiana necessarily, but top schools. And so there are four paths that it's now focusing on. The Pioneers Path, designed to send students to bachelor's and master's programs in all fields at the world's top 30 education institutions. The Providers Path sends students into bachelor's, master's, and training programs with a clear relationship with specific labor market needs. The Research and Development Path, PhD level students, and the Promising Path is meant to stream students into specific fields such as manufacturing, tourism, and et cetera. So really the program is just to sort of kind of sum it up. The program is now getting more focused. It's more focused on providing Saudis a way to go to the US or go abroad, study what they need to know and what they need to know as that improves or affects the Saudi economy. So just interesting changes here. So a program we followed closely, and still very, very ambitious in its own way. 70,000 students abroad paid for is not going to be cheap.
No. And I think according to Zawiya, right now, there are 53,000 young Saudi men and women who are pursuing higher studies under the King's Foreign Scholarship Program in as many as 56 countries. I think this is, as you say, this is a refinement of that King Abdullah Scholarship Program, which I think officially was sort of brought to an end in 2016. And that was a high point in terms of numbers. I think close to 100,000 students in Saudi students in the U.S. This is, I think that's a good. I think it's really a good overview you provided, and gave us a sense of how long these academic initiatives and scholarships have been available for students to study in Saudi Arabia. And I don't think it's impossible, really, to convey or fully understand the impact of these young Saudis coming back to Saudi Arabia, having studied in the U.S. or even the West, and how it's changing. This is the sort of the epitome of soft power in terms of the U.S. And it makes perfect sense for Saudi Arabia to begin to narrow this and refine it, and specifically identify needs in terms of its economy and the larger society as a whole. Really interesting. One of the things we should take heart in is that traditionally students really prefer English-speaking countries. So the vast majority of scholarships go to students studying in the U.S., UK, Australia. This one of the promising path, for example, which is meant to stream students in specific fields such as manufacturing, tourism, bachelor's, master's, and training, quote unquote, training programs located in such countries as South Korea, Japan, and Germany. I love that. That's sort of like, it's not vocational per se, but it's a very specific understanding of things that are needed. Who is it? Dave DeRoche, who constantly, we've had him as a guest on 966 twice, and he makes a distinction when he talks about developing an industry. He makes a distinction between strategic thinking and actually having engineers and craftsmen on the ground who can execute a plan. And how there's always a dearth of these. There has been a dearth of these in Saudi Arabia. This promising path, might set and train a whole whole generation of young Saudis who are really capable at specific fabrication and manufacturer skills that would enable the Lucid plant at King Abdullah Economic City to really thrive. Or any number of other things. So they're trying to hit all that's promising path is 104. And they're trying to hit all the needs of a growing economy. And they're trying to do it by really targeting top educational institutions globally.
Vision 2030 is like the theme. We talk about it all the time, but King Abdullah really had quite a vision as well. It was a very broad stroke that he painted with his scholarship program to send so many children, young adults, over to the U.S. to get educated in English and then get a degree and spend time there. It really is amazing. That took a lot of vision to have a program that didn't have an end, that didn't have one specific goal, but was actually just a turning of the cargo ship, as we discussed. I mean, Vision 2030 is very similar in that way. It is a big, big change to what's happening, and it takes time, and it takes setting goals that are really far ahead that people say, maybe can't be done or are impossible or difficult, and just doing it. And it's an amazing legacy that King Abdullah has left with this program. And I mean, I'm appreciative of it because I have many friends that participated in it and that I would not have met without, the program. Same with you, Richard, as well. And so it's cool. And it's actually kind of cool to see the program mature a little bit. I mean, it's better for Saudi Arabia for it to be this way.
It's a natural evolution. Yeah. When you consider that, that program came out in 2005, King Abdullah met with George Bush down in Waco. And this was in the depths of really, really anxious and contentious relationship, post 9/11 relationship. This is just 4 years after that. It's a brilliant response. It's a subversive sort of approach to rewiring people's understandings of each other. And these families that were in the U.S., Saudi families, students and their dependents, they made an impression and they changed people's minds here. And obviously, I think their experience here was largely positive. So they went back with a good impression of the U.S. So, it makes a lot of sense if the origins of it were the post 9/11 situation, that it be refined and continue to evolve now to meet Vision 2030 priorities. So it seems to be in a healthy place.